How can I attract talents to my startup when I might not be able to compete in terms of salaries with more established companies? Big Brother is watching. Is that a real concept? Well, last show we looked at some applications that are tracking your every move to be able to look at productivity. Today, we're going to look at yet another breaking news in the startup, one startup that got funding, and they are tracking everything that you're writing. How do you feel about that? How about pivoting when things becomes more difficult for your startups? How do you pivot so that you can keep on growing your organization, or simply whenever you want to bring new ideas and new products out there? How do you do that? Welcome to the Mary Poppins of Business Live show. I'm Nelly Makangu, the founder of Athena Leaders, an organization that loves to help you design a happy and productive workplace playground. Today, we will be looking at the breaking news in the startup world. And as you know me by now, we will also have a discussion of some of the implications that those news have on your startups, on some tips and key points you can get out there for any startup that are going through similar challenges as well. Before we start, let me remind you of the three main rules, if I can put them like that. Rule number one, this is not a monologue. I love to interact with you out there. Yesterday, I was having a drink and someone mentioned how much they love watching my videos. And it kind of made me feel quite excited and really give me the motivation and the momentum to keep going. So if you like what you've seen so far, please do like, subscribe, share with others out there to grow the community, to support other startup founders out there as well. And rule number two, if you're watching this show and you're thinking, I can actually contribute. I have a lot of experience about helping startups on their journey, whether I'm a startup myself and wanting to share my story, share my struggles, or I'm someone who can help, please do get in touch. Next week, we're going to have our first startup founder on the show. I'm really, really excited. And we have another one coming up as well within the next 4 weeks. I'm also interviewing a lot of people out there, not just founders, but also advisors and investors, to bring them on the show so that we can keep week after week giving you the very best to grow your organization. Number three, even more importantly, whatever you're doing, make sure to relax and enjoy the show. Now, onto our main articles of the day. We're going to look at three breaking news, three things that was really, really interesting and really grabbed my attention and also made me reflect on what's happening out there in the world of startups. The first one is really about a survey. And as I was saying before, one of the main challenges that startups have is really about attracting new talents. And usually that worry or that concern is based on not being able to afford the same salaries that you will give other people. Now, a What Worker Wants 2021 survey revealed that 93% of startups, a startup employee that was surveyed, they're actually receiving workplace benefits. So there's already a shift happening out there. For example, if you are someone not working in a startup or maybe working in a startup wanting to move to another one and wondering, is this idea of getting benefits still relevant or it still applies? Yes, there is a misconception that many startups do not offer benefits, but as we can see, they do offer benefits. And looking at the survey in more details, what was really interesting to see in terms of what are people asking for out there, especially with the pandemic, the biggest, in terms of benefits and perks, the biggest thing that people are asking is about well-being and more specifically health insurance. Again, it can depend on the country as well. That's very true. But health insurance, life insurance, especially when it comes to well-being, support and benefits around improving the well-being, it's something that a lot of people are asking for. And you might be wondering, well, what if I'm a startup and I'm looking at well-being and how I can improve the well-being and productivity on my team? How can I attract talents and how can I position myself so that people can see me as more viable whenever I need to start ramping up and bringing people at my startup at different stages? So if this is something that you want, find out tips about that, then keep watching. Once we hit the discussion section of our session, we will give you a lot more and practical tips that you can really start using as soon as you finish watching or listening to this show. Second article that we looked at. Now, this one, we moved on from retention or attracting new employees in the organization to survival. So this is one of the articles that really made me chuckle really when I was reading, because this is really about surviving a crisis and how you can pivot, how you can do that very quickly so that you can keep on existing, and some of the sacrificing and the challenges that the organization had to make. We're going to look at a company called TripActions. What's special about them? Well, TripActions is obviously a startup and specialized in spend and expense management technology. And they've recently closed the funding round worth about 275 million. And this was really thanks to pivoting and changing their ideas to survive the pandemic. So how did they do that, and what happened? Before the pandemic, they had a successful product. As you know, especially those working in large corporations or even small one, traveling can be a bit of a headache when it comes to for yourself, the person traveling, the finance department, and anybody involved in consolidating the expenses. You have to everything from finding suppliers, whether they are suppliers that you're providing, the same one that you already use, to booking flights, rooms, to then expenses on the day. So how about having a platform that really helps to streamline travel expenses for organization? TripActions had an answer to that, and they were doing that really well. Unfortunately, as COVID-19 doesn't need any kind of introduction, unfortunately, in March 2020, their market crashed in a way. With the pandemic, people were not flying, they were not going to other countries, there were no expenses to log in that area. It really affected TripActions in a big way, because their revenue plummeted all the way to zero. And it's interesting to see how in just over a year, they have now managed to close a funding round of 250 million by providing more and looking at new markets and also providing more to their clients. So what is their secrets? And what is it that they've done to be able to change very quickly? Well, obviously, as you can imagine, putting yourself in the shoes of the leaders within the organization, it must have been a really, really difficult time. They had to let go of for just about half of the employees. So about 300 people were made redundant so that they could continue operating. And now they are actually they've doubled more than double actually what they had, the number of employees that they had when they first started. So they're about 1,500. So what is interesting in terms of the pivot is that they looked at the opportunity that comes not only from the pandemic and the situation around what new expenses that will be generated, but also the future of work. And what does it mean? Well, with the pandemic, a lot of people will not be able to obviously travel, but especially for large organizations, offering money for people to buy equipment in the house, that's a lot of expenses that you need to track. Other organizations have used different ways of team building and offering different perks, monetary perks, things that needs to be expensed as well to their teams. And this is again in areas that TripActions managed to jump in very quickly. Really, it's something that was already kind of in their roadmap, in the back of their mind, but they've fast forward the development and of those new products. So it went from just focusing on travel to travel and general and other areas of expenses on how they can really support global and large enterprise organizations. While at the same time, they are keeping their eyes on individuals and the medium-sized company as well. By looking at the future of work and what of the opportunities that are coming out there, we can see that the desire of professionals to travel a bit more from maybe a point of view of digital nomad, or even for remote organizations where they might come and meet each other face to face at a regular interval. It could be monthly or bi-weekly. there could be an element of new expenses being generated, and someone needs to be able to manage all of that. So TripAction, with their platforms and almost the other product line that they're coming up with, they really want to be able to answer that question and really, really nail that aspect of things. So in a way, for many organizations that are dealing with the headaches of how do we deal with the expenses, not just from a point of view of travel, but to have a full end-to-end solution, then please do look at TripAction. And for any founders out there that are thinking of how can we expand our product line, especially if we need to do it very quickly, and how can we pivot when dealing with a crisis, might not be as bad as COVID-19, but whatever crisis that you are having, then if you are wondering how to do that, please stay put. In the discussion section coming up very soon, we are going to look at some of the secrets to be able to pivot or quickly take advantage of new organization. So I will share with you some tips that you can use from today so that you can discuss with your team and get into really good habits to allow you to be able to do that as well. If you're liking what we're doing so far, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. If you have any questions so far, you can feel free to ask them now. I will answer them during our discussion sections. Or if you are watching later on, hashtag Athena Leaders, and we gather all the questions and answer them at later shows or on social media. The final article of the day, and something again that really caught my attention, and it's this idea of tracking every information that we put out there at work. Did you know that a typical organization of about 10,000 people might send 180 million messages per year? And this can go up to 1 billion messages, especially for a larger organization. So how do you prevent unethical behavior in your organization if you cannot always see or are not always aware of what people are sharing? And that is a problem that a company called Aware is tackling. So Aware raised 60 million and closed a 60 million funding round, Series C round, for technology that monitors internal messaging for legal compliance, sentiment analysis, and more. And what does it mean? Well, they focused on monitoring text-based conversations on platforms like Slack or Teams or Workplace. And they really look at patterns and what people are saying to see if they can flag anything that they believe is unethical based on some of the parameters that they have. So they track for legal compliance, toxic behavior, sharing of confidential information, and much more. So this is a space that, especially when we start talking about the future of work and the increase in transparency and asynchronous communication, is an area that makes people a bit nervous, knowing that on one hand, there's this promotion of transparency, and on the other hand, there's this belief of tracking to make sure that people that there's ethical behavior going on. So how do they work hand in hand? Just to kind of calm the nerves of people who might feel a bit anxious about that, there are a lot of big name, a lot of big investment companies that believe in these ideas. So if you look at the likes of Goldman Sachs Asset Management, they led the round with several investment companies. So this is a big space, a space growing. In fact, I was at South Summit last week that promotes the work of founders and startups from around the world, and it's based in Madrid. I was there face to face. One of the really exciting things that I've seen in this similar space was a woman starting a startup that's based on identifying sexual harassment based on text. Again, so this is a space that is growing really rapidly. So going back to Aware and some of the really interesting statistics that are found in terms of some of the key metrics that they've already identified and the patterns that they've seen. So on an average, 1 out of 190 private messages, so that's one-to-one message, and 1 of every 280 public messages that will be on an open channel are flagged as negative conversations. And 1 in 449 private messages and 1 in 262 public messages share passwords. And that's an interesting one, as if we are going to continue working in a hybrid working world, or even not, IT security, cybersecurity are the biggest topics, the biggest thing that people are talking about. Yet there's still quite a large number of people that are sharing passwords in messages. If this happens to you, it's something that you do, then I will highly suggest that you watch back our episodes on IT and security, especially in a hybrid world, where we'll share with you some tools and tips on some of the products and the software that you can use to avoid this practice. What else have we found when I was researching about Aware? Well, 1 in 135 private messages and 1 in 118 public messages share confidential data, and that's a big no-no. And again, to finish up, one-to-one private conversation, there are 250% more likely to contain toxic messages, and this even go higher when it comes to public environments. So this is kind of just to give you some ideas of why Aware felt that it was really important to start looking at messaging. Obviously, going forward, Aware is planning an expansion in Europe and in other areas. In addition to that, there's also the need to start looking at identifying similar patterns when it comes to video communication. A lot of people are spending time on Zoom and other video conferencing, and those are things that we are going to also are going to become topical in terms of analyzing information and messaging platform and tracking. Now, the question, again, just as a reminder, when we start looking at the transparency, what is the impact on asynchronous communication and building trust with your team as we transition to the future of work? I hope you've enjoyed those articles. Again, if you have any question and anything that pops into your mind as we've shared with you what's happening in the news of tech, please let us know. Like, subscribe, share, comments, text, call, or whatever platform you want. I will be happy to speak to you. Now we are going to go into our third or final section. Throughout today, I've shared with you 3 important questions. And if you are watching today and want to find out more practical tips, this is the moment for you. Pen, paper, start typing, everything goes. Let's look at question number 1. How can a startup attract talent, especially when they're worried about not being able to compete salary-wise with more established organizations? The first thing I would like to say is that, of course, as a startup, this is something that you worry about, but you also need to realize the opportunities that lie behind working in a startup and really highlight that and find people that are really triggered and naturally want to work with startup. For a start, your culture is really important. And having a unique culture is really, especially for a startup, is something that differentiates you with bigger organizations. Make sure that you communicate very often on social media, and even when you're advertising the job, make sure that you communicate the essence of your culture to attract like-minded individuals. And when we look at culture, don't be worried about not having a Google office or a WeWork office, not offering free foods, free drinks, or the likes. I've looked, as I'm doing research for other shows, something really interesting popped up. At Glassdoor, a site that ranks organization, one organization was given a 1 out of 5 stars in terms of how the organization is managed, is run, and how they enjoy working for that company. The only benefits that they've seen were all of the free food and all of the free things that they used to get from the organization. But one of the comments and the challenges that they had, especially as it was an organization scaling up as well, was that there was a lack of leadership. There was no clear roadmap. They didn't really understand how to stabilize the organization or how to provide even basic processes or how to manage projects, make sure that things are going out of the door, communication challenges, and all of those great things that I talk a lot about in my podcast. They really struggle with that. And as you can see, if you can nail those things, and if as you start in your organization, your startup, you keep an eye out on how you can slowly improve the culture of your organization, then you will have a better chance of attracting people. Talking about culture, one of the things that people are really craving for at the moment that can also set you apart is flexible work, hybrid working, remote working. As a startup, you might not have the baggage, the infrastructure that large companies have. So you are more lenient and you can move rapidly. So if you are thinking about flexible hours or flexible location, it's something that you can use to attract people. And as you can see in my blogs, looking at the statistics, there are many organizations, many people out there that when swapping or changing organization, they are going to start looking at how much flexibility that they get. And what if you have a great culture, opportunity for growth that comes with working in a startup, really attractive, and you also can provide the opportunity for flexible work. If you're not sure on how to set up a flexible hybrid organization, do let me know. I'm happy to send you a lot of summarized information. If not, do spend a lot of time on my YouTube channels, as I've got a lot of information, even guest interviews on that topic. And another thing that I want to shout out about, it's really, especially when we start looking at founders, especially tech founders or not tech founders, that might not have a strong commercial background or that might not enjoy a lot of the face-to-face interaction. Especially if you are the CEO, unfortunately, it comes with the job. So what can you do to start attracting people? Remember that the more you increase your network, the better it is for you. So I would suggest that you start going out, and even if you are not ready to recruit, but start putting yourself out there for people to get to know you. There are professionals that might want to move, but they're not really keen on moving right now, and they're looking for the right opportunity for their careers to blossom, and you could be it. So the more you go out, tap into your network and start talking to people, let them know what are the first few roles that you'll be looking for. You will use your network to help you recruit new talent. As an example, when a startup wanted me to work to help them design the product, well, it came from a recommendation. And when another one that is starting to scale up, wanting someone to come in and help them to give them the basics to start having a strong operation, so that when they are trailing the beautiful product that they've built, that they have someone that can help them also provide a sleek operation, delight customers, and helps them with their roadmap and the way they will manage the projects and everything. This came to me through recommendation, through someone from our mutual network. So again, if you want to attract new people within your organization, do make use of your network. The last one we're going to look at is advertising channels. Now, when you're advertising for startup, especially for your first few employees, you also want to attract people who have an entrepreneurial mindset. People are excited about fast-paced challenges. People who love to wear many hats. People who are adept at working without knowing exactly everything that they have to do. And if that's the case, you want to be able to also use advertising channel that promotes that. If you go online, there are many websites now that targets roles for remote, targets roles for hybrids, and the same applies for platforms that can target startups specifically. This way, if someone, wherever point in their careers, feels like they want to have that experience on working in a small companies, as it provides a way of widening your skills or deepening your skill sets as well, then that is something attractive that you offer, and that will be using that channel will also help you. More importantly, to summarize on this question, is really about to start searching way earlier, way before you want to attract them. And this could mean just having conversations, tapping up on your network. If you want to find out more about how to attract talent, please do get in touch with us, and we'll be happy to give you even more tips on how to do that. Question number 2. What is the secret to be able to pivot or quickly take advantage of new ideas? Now, this is something that's really exciting, and I'm going to cover that very, very quickly and give you a bit of, and just give you a request for you. If this is a topic that you would like us to talk in more detail, because this is something that I can really cover on the show on its own, please let me know, either today or #AfinaLeaders. Find me privately on LinkedIn if you want to, but I'll be happy to have an episode dedicated on that, or even bring guests to talk about this. But very quickly, I'm going to give you a very high-level view on how you could do that. First of all, make sure that you have a clear vision of what you want to build. right? Your vision needs to be very clear so that you know as you're progressing, not just what I'm building today on day one or year one, but where you want to go in the future. In addition to the vision, you want to have a roadmap. And there are many different types and levels of roadmaps at different stages of your organization, at different levels of your organizations. You want to have a roadmap even when you have an idea at the ideation phase of what you are going to build. You want to have a roadmap at the prototype stage and as you enter full development. In addition to roadmap, you also want to have a backlog. You want to capture ideas that might not be something that you want to do today, maybe in the future. Even if it sounds like, oh my God, this is bonkers, there's no way we can do it today. You never know what the future holds. And some of those gems, those ideas that you've already generated could be what you need to diversify your product set in the future, especially if you need to move very quickly. But the most important thing that you need to remember is that developing or growing a product or a company is a bit like raising a child. The ideas or thought that you have for your products will evolve. What you have today, the ideas, will change. Keep your ear on the ground. Listen to your investors, your customers, your clients, your people, and that will allow you to build a stronger and better product as you move forward. More importantly, also remind yourself that as for a child, let's look at a child, for example. There are parents out there that want to have a tennis player for a child or a child that will be amazing at playing the piano. You might have the best intention. At 3 years old, give a racket to your child. At 6, start paying for tennis tuition. Get them into the best schools and they become one of the best players at school or in the town that you live with. As the child grows, there is an opportunity for them to discover new things and they might not end up in the path that you've created for them. Your product is the same. Of course, you still put the boundaries in there, which is what your vision, why your vision is important, so that it helps you to see the parameters within which you want to grow your product. And if you decide that your product needs to take a completely different step outside of those parameters, there are still ways to do that, as long as you keep your mission, your mission statement as well correlates. But there's a lot of things that you can do about that. It's not the scope of today's discussion. But please do bear in mind that the product will grow and evolve, and to have the best chances of pivoting, of changing, or bringing new ideas in the market is 1, listen to the market, and 2, make sure you have a very, very clear roadmap. Swiftly moving on to question number 3 and the final one. And this one, as I did last week, as always, I love to leave my guests or the people coming to my show, to my home, with something that they can take as well and start thinking. What is the impact on asynchronous communication and building trust with your team as you transition to the future of work? As I've talked a lot on this show about hybrid working and the importance of openness and asynchronous communication and also transparency. Now, there is a feeling of a bit of a threat when we start looking at applications being created that will start looking at everything that you are typing will be monitored in a way. And of course, the worry is not so much about the legal or the ethical application, is usually about the unknown. So whenever someone starts gathering data, we never know what will come up a few years later, and that makes people more nervous. So I want to just leave it with you, so to have a bit of a think about. But as usual, I believe that rather than being scared of new technology, this is a really good space to start having those discussions so that we can grow as a nation, and we can also start seeing how we can protect ourselves, protect our technology, and also improve the culture of organization as well. For any managers that are worried out there that are worried, please don't be worried. Do continue to promote asynchronous communication for your team as a way of reducing Zoom fatigue, something that we've spoke a lot about in this show. The one-to-one, whether you want to run them face-to-face or visually, or even asynchronous communication, or any other way of deconstructing team building exercises. And again, if you're wondering what is that, do get in touch or watch previous shows. I'll be happy to give you more information on that. Make sure that you continue, because this is going to be really, really important as we are transitioning in the future of work. So there you have it, 3 really interesting questions that we've looked at, and 3 really exciting articles is part of this breaking news in the world of startup. What do you think? I would love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget, Next week, we are bringing our first startup founder. Yes, really excited. And they will be sharing with us a lot about, they're working within the fintech sector, a lot about what they've done, and also the challenges that face startup founders have as they're about to close the funding round and bring more people in the organization, and especially the organizational challenges and issues and how they are going to tackle some of that as well. So if you are excited, then please tune in next week. Do you want to know what it is? Well, subscribe to our channel and do follow up on social media because we'll be announcing them very soon. In the meantime, let's design a happy and productive workplace playground together.